Welcome to another episode of the PNP Show. I have a mustache now. I'll do this for a little bit, but then we gotta get rid of the mustache. We'll shave it off in the middle of the broadcast. It's December. We can't be having a mustache out here.
You're one hairy guy there, Patrick.
Hey. We also are being very festive with the Christmas lights up this week. It's December now. It was December last week as well, but not close enough to Christmas yet.
Well, Merry Christmas to all our viewers.
Merry Christmas. We had a crazy week last week. Crazy week. So it is time to recap last week. But before we recap last week, I know nobody's gonna be able to take me serious, so we're gonna shave off the beard or the mustache. That was like a 3-minute thing. Not
you
even.
You look real serious. You look like a sportscaster. I vote that you keep it.
Well, I don't know. Maybe if we get enough votes, comment in the comment section if you would like me to keep the mustache, and we'll keep the mustache. But I'm gonna shave it off right now, okay? But you gotta vote, and I'll grow it out again. Okay, ready?
Ready?
It's gone.
You look like you have maturity and authority, like you really knew something for a change. Okay, well, let's get going.
Okay, let's get into recapping last week, and what a week it was. We had some chaos, as we expected. Chaos is going to happen. So we're going to hop into the recap. I didn't actually have it pulled up, and I apologize for the inconvenience of that, but I'm going to pull it up. Week 14, Conference Championships. Starting off, Utah crushes Oregon. No surprise on that one.
No surprise. It was like replay of the game they played a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Utah. Score was about the same. The bottom is just falling out of Oregon. Their coach is leaving for Miami, and so Oregon is not going to be a factor for a while, if ever.
Right. UTSA wins the, what was it? I don't know, CUSA championship, 49-41 over Western Kentucky. Alabama beats Georgia in a shocker. Possibly the game of the week.
Yeah, that was a shocker. What was really a shocker is how many points Alabama scored. They have been inconsistent all year. Texas A&M game, they acted as if all they had to do was show up to win, and then right at the end of the game, they came up short. And
right.
They almost got beat by Arkansas, an improving team, but not of the same caliber. And then the Auburn game, they played like a 2-minute game. The first part of the game up until the last 2 minutes, they did nothing, virtually nothing. They looked terrible. And then all of a sudden, they just broke out and went crazy. So I think many people were expecting that Alabama was not for real, that Georgia was going to take them easily, and that did not happen. They put a whooping on the Dogs.
And that eliminates Notre Dame from the playoffs. You see Baylor beat Oklahoma State, which we'll talk about, and you think, oh, wait, Notre Dame's going to get in here. Nope. Alabama comes out and beats Georgia. Michigan crushes Iowa. Not what I was expecting to happen. And Michigan comes out with a 42-3 win. I thought Iowa might make it respectable, but no. Michigan, it was close enough at halftime, but Michigan came out and blew them out second half.
I expected it to be a closer game, but I picked Michigan, and that's the way it came out.
Right. We both picked Michigan, but as expected. Cincinnati wins the American Athletic Conference Championship 35-20 over Houston. I thought Houston was going to play a better game, but again, Cincinnati only been winning by 2 touchdowns and a point.
Right. And the
but
game
well-deserved.
And the game was close for a while. But
right.
Then in the second half, Cincinnati broke out. So I continue to be impressed by Cincinnati. I think they have a solid team. And they've drawn Alabama. So they got their work cut out for them.
That should be good. But we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But that'd be a big story if they beat Alabama and got in the national championship.
Yes. And I'm rooting for them if that does happen. But Baylor beats Oklahoma State. I was at Matthew's basketball game watching it. I was like celebrating at the same time while screaming at Matthew's basketball team. It was a very low-scoring game. Final score 7-2. That's because nobody wanted to shoot the ball. So it was a real adrenaline rush right there. But Oklahoma State diving for the pylon at the end. They would have taken the lead. There was 5 seconds left. And great defense by Baylor with the goal line stand. Diving for the pylon comes just short. I can include a clip of that. Here's a clip of that. Monumental moment. It was amazing. What a game that was.
Well, to your credit, you picked Baylor. I picked Oklahoma State. I guess it could have gone either way, but Baylor gets the W.
And that could not have been even more close. Again, another game you expect to be closer. Pitt wins the ACC championship 45-21 over Wake. Wake was undefeated until that game against North Carolina. Then they lost to Clemson, and now Pitt. Wake Forest is kind of falling apart.
Yeah. Well, I think Wake Forest is a decent team. They got the rough part of the schedule at the end, and as a result, the end of the season wasn't as bright as the beginning of the season. So we'll have to see. I don't know who Wake has coming back next year. If they do have most of the talent returning, we may see another good year from them. But yes, let's face it, Kenny Pickett may win the Heisman Trophy. I think Bryce
like to see that.
Inside track, but he's been spectacular all year, and he's really been the difference maker for that team.
Yeah.
Although we both predicted Pitt would win.
Right. Pitt's a good team this year. Shocker here. Utah State takes down number 19 San Diego State 46-13 in the Mountain West Conference Championship. Wow.
Yeah, who cares? But nevertheless,
who cares? But wow, a blowout of a ranked team there.
It was a surprise. I didn't think the game would be that much of a blowout, but it was, and so good luck to them in the postseason.
Yep. Appalachian State falls to the Raging Cajuns without Billy Napier. Actually, I don't know about that, actually. I believe Napier's gone for the bowl game, but he coached it.
Right. He coached in that game.
Yeah.
I had Appalachian State. You had the Raging
we both had Appalachian State.
We both had Appalachian State.
Yes,
right.
because they crushed Louisiana earlier in the season by a final score of 41-13. So Louisiana bouncing back, and good win here, but a good game.
Yeah, and the Raging Cajuns beat the Chanticleers this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I believe Appalachian State did too.
Yeah, they did. this was a down year for the Super Chickens.
They're still good. I think they had 2 losses, 3 losses, but still not bad.
They'll make a bowl game, but it wasn't the season that I think they were hoping to have.
Especially after last year.
Right.
In the MAC championship, the Northern Illinois Huskies come out on top against the Kent State Golden Flashes by a final score of 41-23. And the Northern Illinois Huskies are your 2021 MAC Conference Championship champions. And then finally, USC played California. Not a conference championship. They just played each other. I don't know why. Maybe you do.
Well, I think they wanted to get so many games in, and this just was what they needed to do to get a certain number of games played.
Well,
California won.
Not a surprise.
USC is this year been a disappointment. I think they thought they were going to do better. They fired their coach. They're bringing in the coach from Oklahoma. Much like Brian Kelly, that was a big surprise that he made that move. But Lincoln Riley is a very good coach, and that program will improve. Whether or not they will get to the top of the Pac-12 is another story. You have just down the street from USC, you have UCLA. Chip Kelly had a good team this year. They improved all year long. And I don't know what the Utes have back, but the Utes were just overwhelming. So
right.
Definitely.
So a conference matchup there within the Pac-12, but not a conference championship. But Cal comes out on top by 10. And that brings us into our bowls. But first, we're going to talk about the rankings. So after Alabama's win against number 1, they become number 1.
Right.
Michigan comes in at number 2, like last week, because I don't know if you can put them against the Alabama team that just beat number 1 undefeated Georgia. And then,
yeah, you want that last game to be between the 2 best teams in the country. And as we look over what's happened this season, right now, from what we can see, Alabama and Michigan are the 2 best teams. You can't dismiss Cincinnati and Georgia, but Cincinnati, as we have just discussed, has been solid. I can't say they've been impressive in terms of the margin of victory that they've had all year, but they are undefeated. They beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame. That game, I think, gets more weight than it deserves, but it is what it is. And with respect to Georgia, the wheels fell off. It just was no contest. Everybody thought that Georgia had a good year all year, consistent, had quality victories all year, and Alabama was inconsistent, and that they had lost the step, and this was not the year for Alabama to repeat. Well, it's looking like that could go that way. It's Roll Tide, and we'll get into this in more detail later, but that's my team in the playoffs. That's who I'm going to be looking for to go the whole way.
Back-to-back champs, huh?
Well, I think it's back to back. I don't know how many years they've won it in a row.
Their latest was last year. Before that, it was LSU, and then before that, it was Clemson, I think. So let's go over some of the most significant bowls. Now, here's the PMP show schedule coming up, because it's going to be a little bit jumbled because the bowls are all spread out. We'll have an episode next week, but it's not going to have most of our main bowls in it. Some of the smaller bowls that will be going on in the week, they'll be scattered all throughout the week on Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Thursday, Friday.
Well, and I would say this: when we have our production meeting and we go over what material we might cover, if it really looks like it's not worth it, then we're going to take a Christmas break for the PMP show.
We should. But hey, who knows? We will determine that. We may or may not have a show next week, depending on the significance of the games. But we'll go over that here. And then the week after that, obviously the most important, coming with your New Year's Bowls, the most important. You got Wake Forest and Texas A&M. That's a good matchup. You got Pitt, Michigan State. That's a good matchup in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. You got the two semifinal games on New Year's Eve. Great games there. You're going to have a day full of college football. You're going to be excited from that, and then you're just going to count down and, whatever. And then on New Year's Day, you got Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. You got Kentucky, Iowa. You got Ohio State, Utah. You got Baylor, Ole Miss. That's a good game. But again, we'll talk about that when the time comes. And then on the 4th, you have one bowl. And then the national championship will be a whole nother episode the next week. And then that wraps up our college football season. And until then, we'll talk about probably the end of the NFL season. And then it's going to be scattered from there on out. I don't know what our schedule is going to be exactly.
Well, it depends on what's happening. And of course, who knows? COVID is obviously having an effect. Look at what's happening to the pro lineups this week. There's a number of quality players throughout the NFL who are not going to be playing because they tested positive for COVID. So if this goes on, who knows what our situation is going to be. Could also be that way with respect to baseball. There's no use not watching, but following baseball and getting too serious about it if the better players aren't playing.
And so, with the lockout going on, who knows if this is going to start
the
on
lockout.
time.
Now,
so hold on about that. Okay, so hold on. So it's crazy to think, but right after the Super Bowl, because after we're done here with the college football playoffs, that brings us pretty much into the NFL playoffs. We go through that. The MLB season's close to starting. We have a little bit of a dead period there, but MLB's already starting up. This is a quick off season, and who knows if we're going to start on time because of the player lockout that it's still not been resolved. So what are you going to say about that?
What they're saying is that this is just part of the process,
right.
And everybody understands that when the season is supposed to get started, including spring training, it's going to start on time because nobody wants to see the season not go forward on a regular basis. So we'll have to see if that's the case. But again, we don't know.
We'll keep you updated here.
Oh yeah, you can get the latest on the PNP show. You can count on that.
Right.
Not necessarily from this P, but from that P over there.
We give you credit. We give you credit.
Especially when it comes to baseball, he's all over it. I want to make a comment here before we get off about the Brian Kelly switch. I thought it was a classless move. All right. Okay. They want to give him $90 million. Now, any of us, if we had the opportunity to just pick up $90 million, and it wouldn't matter whether we won or not, because if he doesn't play out, if he doesn't coach out the contract and they fire him, he's going to get $90 million. Well,
it's all about money to him, and that's really
it's all
unfair.
about money and how much money do you need? And he would say, well, I need a lot of money. So he made the move. He had the classless reaction of flying down to Baton Rouge and cutting the deal in secret, then flying back to South Bend and sending that late email to the team saying, meet me at the locker room at 7 a.m. in the morning and we'll talk about it. And then he comes over
for 10 minutes and then I'll fly back. What is that?
Right. And he didn't even talk to 10 minutes. And basically all he said was, I really couldn't pass this up and you'll be all right. Mm-hmm. Got a good athletic director and he'll figure it out. And so therefore don't worry about it. And I wish you all the best. And it's nobody's fault here at Notre Dame that I'm leaving. I'm not leaving because I'm dissatisfied. And then he's gone. So Notre Dame is going into a quality bowl game. At that time, it could have been, because they hadn't announced the Final Four, it could have been in the national championship, right, playoff. But credit to Notre Dame's athletic director. He went right to Freeman and offered him the job. In fact, Freeman had been offered a job at LSU with Kelly if he wanted to go with him. And Freeman had the good sense, because it was a large amount of money, and I haven't seen that publicized, but it was a very sweet deal. He had the opportunity to just grab it and go with Kelly, but he said, I need to think about it overnight. I need to think about it and talk to my wife. And in that period of time, he decided, no, I don't really want to do that. I want to stay here at Notre Dame. I think we have something good going. Tommy Rees, he tried to take him too. He didn't. The conditioning coach apparently went with Kelly, but mainly the coaching staff is intact. I think Freeman's ready to step up. Tommy Rees will come up with a good game plan. Freeman will come up with a good defensive plan, and I think Notre Dame's going to be okay. And this is going to be a springboard to a great next season. Now, you told me today that certain key players were sitting at the bowl game and going right into the NFL.
That would be Kyle Hamilton and Kyron Williams, our star running back, which is disappointing, but hey.
Right.
We got Chris Tyree, and everything will be fine. And I think Freeman will find an adjustment to that.
Yeah, it's next man up, and they'll do it. And I have to say, again, I have the greatest admiration for Jack Cohen. He got really a raw deal at Wisconsin. He got hurt. He was playing well. He got hurt. The player that came in, Gertz, I guess his name is, did well too. And then they had to make a decision. They decided to stay with Gertz. And Cohen wanted to play football. He just didn't want to sit there and be on the team and do a little cleanup at the end of the game or come in if somebody got hurt. So he went to Notre Dame. He competed with the other two, Pine and Buckner, and showed that he was the better coach.
Well, can I make a statement?
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
And Tommy Rees did a very good job in identifying those situations when they needed a change of pace, and they and then they put in. Why did I forget the name of that quarterback again? Buckner. Put in Buckner, and every time Buckner came in, they were usually successful. He came in a situation where they were in a scoring position, and Buckner got it done. But then Cohen came back, and he's a cool customer. He sits back there. He finishes his reads. He's a very accurate passer. Is he going to be great in the pros if he goes to the pros? I don't see him as a starter in the pros. So
Book's not a starter.
Yeah. So, but still, I could see him being a very effective backup.
Yeah, and I think Notre Dame would beat Cincinnati right now. The improvement that they have had over the season, it's ridiculous. And I'm excited for our future with Tyler Buckner, and the few snaps that he did have, it's looking good. Pine, I think, is a senior, so I think he's done as well. So,
well, he may because of COVID, he may have some time. We may see him in the portal and playing for another team next year. I know that he has to be disappointed because his name was mentioned as the starting quarterback quite a bit at the beginning of the season. It was a 3-horse race, and then all of a sudden he just faded, and I don't know how many snaps he got this season, not very many. So he has to be disappointed. Apparently he's above average quarterback, and there's a place for him somewhere. It just isn't at Notre Dame right now. So we'll see.
So this says he's a freshman, but it's a sophomore/freshman. You probably know what that means. I don't. Maybe he's going into his sophomore year.
Sophomore/freshman. I
thought he was a senior.
Who?
Pine. Apparently not.
Well, I thought he was at least a sophomore, maybe a junior.
He's a sophomore. I just realized it was Brandon Clark from last year. He was booked back up. He was the one that's a senior. Okay. All right. Never mind.
Okay. Well,
we have to pick for Army Navy.
All right. That'll work itself out. So let's go to Army Navy.
So Army
I don't have the stats up. What's the record of each?
So Army is 8-3. Navy's 3-8.
Army's had a pretty good season. Have they had any quality wins there?
Army, the Black Knights. They beat Georgia State, Western Kentucky. They just beat something. No, they
lost close. They lost close.
But they were in the conference championship.
Yeah.
Lost to UTSA. Okay. They beat UConn, Miami, Ohio. They lost to Ball State, lost to Wisconsin, lost to Wake Forest. But they put up 56 points against Wake Forest. They beat Air Force. They beat
Navy.
Bucknell. They beat Navy. No, they didn't.
They lost to Navy?
They didn't play them.
Oh, they're playing them this week.
Yes, yeah, okay. I don't know what you're talking about.
Senior moment.
But they beat Liberty. And I don't know if Liberty's that good. Liberty
is a pretty decent team. They probably not as good as last year. I think they had one loss, and that was to Coastal Carolina last year. Not the season that just ended, but the season before. And I know they lost to Mississippi. Because Hugh Freeze, the coach of Liberty, used to be at Mississippi, and he got fired for some recruiting violations or whatever. And so he's remaking himself. He's hoping to stand out at Liberty and get back into a more competitive conference.
So Navy's lost to Marshall, Air Force, Houston, SMU, Memphis, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Eastern Carolina, and Temple. But they beat UCF and Tulsa, and they beat Temple. So their wins are decent.
Navy has played a tougher schedule.
Right. But they've
played a tougher schedule.
They've lost to teams that Army has beaten.
All right. Well,
I'm going to go with the Black Knights.
Yeah. One of the little known factoids about me is that I spent 8 years in the Army, in the Army Reserve, and wore the uniform of the Army. I realized as time went on that of the various choices, the Army isn't the premier choice as far as which service to be into. You can't beat the Air Force. That's a real country club situation there, and Navy's not far behind. Marines are tough, but of course, the Naval Academy has both Marines and Navy personnel, because the Marines are a subdivision of the Navy. So, but all that aside, I'm going for the Black Knights of the Hudson.
Me too. All right. That wraps up our show for this week, just about. Very productive week. Enjoy Army Navy, one of the greatest traditions of college football.
Yes, the pageantry is excellent when the two corps of cadets and then the corps of the midshipmen come out on the field. There just isn't another moment like that in college football. And of course, they're veterans. Well, they aren't veterans yet because they haven't graduated, but they will be veterans. They've made a substantial sacrifice. All these people probably could have played somewhere else and got a scholarship. And everybody at Navy gets a scholarship. Everybody at Air Force gets a scholarship. It's basically a free ride for everybody across the board. So they aren't really getting anything extra for playing football or any sport for a service academy. But it's a great tradition, and I'm looking forward to the game as always. Where is it being played this year?
It's at MetLife Stadium in New York.
Okay, so it's a neutral site. Last year was played up at West Point. Very historic field up there. I think it's called Michie Stadium, and that's the stadium in which purportedly Gus DeRay and Knute Rockne invented the forward pass. A lot of controversy about that. They say that the forward pass was being used by other teams in other places, but not the way that that Notre Dame did it on that day. And Gus DeRay's end, who he threw several touchdown passes to, Knute Rockne. So if you ever watch, and probably this is a good time to do it, go online. You can find it online, and watch Knute Rockne All-American, and that has that scene there up at West Point where they play that game, and the world was surprised that little Notre Dame, who no one had ever heard of, beat the mighty Army team. So,
all right. Well, again, just a quick reminder: if you would like me to keep the mustache, comment down below, and maybe we can keep that for one episode, a full episode of Mustache Me, and we might do that. If we don't see you next week, which we may not, depends on what we want to do, what our time is. We might have time. It might not be that big of a deal, but if not, Merry Christmas to everybody. And we hope you have a nice Christmas. We'll be here before the new year, but Merry Christmas. We got the tree behind us here. No ornaments on it yet. We're actually doing that now. So that's
all right. Well,
well,
I'm gonna let our viewers in on a secret. This mustache vote is going to be a one-vote contest, and the biggest fan of the PNP show is going to decide whether the mustache comes back. And who is that?
Grammy.
No,
I'm hoping that we get some.
So go ahead and vote, and maybe if Patrick, when he sees this episode, really likes the mustache, he can go back to his grandmother and say, "Hey, I got a great response to this mustache. Are you really gonna nix this?" Maybe she'll have a change of heart, but I don't think so. Grammy has very strong opinions.
She would never want me to grow a real mustache.
She would not want you to grow a real mustache, but she might find that this is funny enough to keep. Oh, hey, Grammy, what do you think of that look? I vote for that.
All right. Thank you for watching this week on the PNP show. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Maybe.
And from the West Bank of the Cuyahoga, good night and go Army.
Go Army. All right. So long, everybody.
Step in the kitchen. Let's go.